Lieberman. I'm a senior attorney with Advancement Project, which is a national leading voter protection organization, and I represent the interests of the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, which is a ad hoc organization of about 24 nonpartisan organizations that come together in opposition to voter ID proposals. This is now the 8th year that this body has proposed restrictive voter ID requirements for voting in the state of Missouri. And one thing remains increasingly clear: with each passing year, the evidence continues to mount that proves unequivocally that the stated rationales behind these proposals are false, and that these proposals will indeed serve to relegate hundreds of thousands of Missouri voters to second-class citizens. I have emerged as a nationwide expert on voter ID laws, preparing testimony for the United States Senate Judiciary Committee on voter ID laws across the country, and serving as counsel of record on photo ID lawsuits here in Missouri, as well as in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and now I am lead counsel in a lawsuit in North Carolina involving their voter ID requirements as well. And what I can tell you is that nationwide, it is undisputed that voter impersonation is not a problem at the polls. Indeed, even some of the most strident proponents of voter ID laws have now backtracked with regards to this issue. In North Carolina, Governor McCrory and Speaker of the House Tom Tillis have both now said that voter fraud is not a rationale, will not be addressed by the voter ID bill that they passed there this past year. What is true, however, is that these proposals will relegate hundreds of thousands of Missouri voters to second-class citizens. We heard the Secretary of State's estimate of 220,000 Missouri voters, valid voters, eligible voters in the state of Missouri who lack the kind of ID necessary to vote under this proposal. And then there's 120,000 additional voters whose IDs are expired. The problem with these bills, even if they provide the ID for free, is that it's very difficult, if not impossible, for certain segments of the population to obtain the underlying documents necessary to procure the ID. Senator Krause earlier said that he spoke with constituents who were surprised that ID wasn't required at the polls. And indeed, it's understandable they would think that, because our law does require all voters in the state of Missouri to present identification at the polls. We already have a voter identification law on the books, and it works. There's never been a single documented instance of voter impersonation in the state, and in all the litigation that's gone on all over the country, where I assure you, experts have spent thousands of hours perusing every single reported allegation of voter impersonation, they haven't been able to come up with any. If we are concerned about the integrity of the elections process, perhaps we should be looking at legislation that would ensure that all people who are eligible to cast a ballot are able to do so. I also want to address briefly the joint resolution, which Senator Krause began in his opening remarks as stating it was a small issue, Senate Joint Resolution 31. I would take issue with that being a small issue, and here's why. Senate Bill 511, as currently drafted, is unconstitutional in the state of Missouri. I find this astonishing that we continue to come together as a legislative body and propose legislation that we know violates our own state constitution. And that's because the Missouri Supreme Court has already ruled that requirements like those in 511 violate the guarantees of our Constitution that provide that the right to vote is fundamental. And so Senate Joint Resolution 31 is necessary in order to carve out part of that constitutional protection. Senate Bill 511 can't go into effect as written, even if it is passed by this body and signed by the governor, unless we amend the Constitution to strip out that part of the Constitution that is violated by voter ID requirements. So I would suggest that indeed it's no small issue to ask the voters of the state of Missouri, for the leaders of this state to ask the voters of the state of Missouri to carve out an exception to our Constitution that guarantees a fundamental right in voting. I believe that that should only be done under the most compelling of circumstances. We don't amend our Constitution in the name of political expediency. And I'm certain that voters in Missouri would feel similarly.
Time is very good.
Your time is very good, your 5 minutes is up.
That's fine, I will
Appreciate
end with
your
that.
passion.
I'm
Thank
happy to take any questions.
Questions of the witness? Seeing none, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
My name is Carolyn, Landry. I live in St. Charles, and I'm here representing myself. I am testifying against SJR 31 and SB 511. According to SB 511, in order to get this ID, I have to have my birth certificate, and I have to have the marriage certificate if the names don't agree. I have a birth certificate and I have a marriage certificate, but I was married prior to my current marriage of 34 years, and I do not have documentation. So the name that's on my current marriage certificate is my prior married name. I do not have documentation for that prior marriage. I don't remember the dates. In fact, I don't even want to remember his name. Documentation in order to tie together my birth certificate name and my current married name. That means that the Missouri legislature tells me that I am ineligible to vote. I was born in this country. I have worked all my adult life in this country. I pay taxes in this state and country. And now I collect Social Security in this country because I worked my entire adult life in this country. The U.S. Constitution gives me the right to vote, and that's a right that a lot of women suffered for to get. But now, the Missouri legislature tells me I can't vote because I don't have voter ID. I don't have any documentation to prove who I am. I am a Missouri citizen, just like the rest of you. And I would like to know why the Missouri legislature thinks that it has the right to take my rights away from me because I can't prove who I am.